thing on here.
We could go ahead and put it on the next month's agenda if y'all wanna do that. It'll
In
give
May?
time to- Yeah,
Sure.
that'll give time to, everybody have, time to think about how they wanna handle it, what they wanna do.
We are going, Mr. Chairman, and you are recording.
All right. Item number 1, approve the agenda. You guys got any questions or comments or problems with anything on this agenda? I don't know.
I don't.
Alright. Item number 2, the consent agenda. It's just approving the minutes of the previous meeting. I'll look over those if you want to.
Mr. Chairman, there are no bus trips. However, we do have 2 bus trips coming in the month of May of national conventions and state convention. That'll be on. They're going.
What about senior trip?
Now, senior trips already been approved. You approved that
Right,
last
right.
month. But we have 2 National Beta Club, Senior National Beta Club, and they'll probably be the Junior National Beta Club. And then FFA's convention is actually going to be in June this time. So normally it's in April when they moved it to June in Gatlinburg. So that will be on next month's agenda. I just got those today. So
Good.
expect those on next month's agenda.
Okay. Item number 3, Ms. Patterson, you come up here and sit with us?
It's a little busy month for school safety. Couple of things. First of all, I'd like to give you all a resource guide for Cannon County. This is, I consider it under safety, and I have extras if y'all would like one. This booklet was a combination of several people working together with the Drug Coalition. We have been, as a health council for the county, been trying to get a booklet like this together for years. And so with some help of some grant funding, we now have some community resource booklets. We've been giving those out to parents. I've given them out through pre-K and kindergarten registration. We've got those to give out to families with the principals meeting tomorrow, to give to principals, to give to families. And then I've been giving them out in truancy board meetings and things of that sort. So some good information there. And that's another partnership. We also, if you'll remember, we did the Tennessee Together survey with the Drug Coalition to help with find some data on tobacco usage and other things with our students. And that is done. We've seen a preliminary copy. It's very interesting, and the nice printed glossy books will be here for you in about a month for you to see the data that was compiled. It's very interesting. It will help us guide our program with the data that we collected. The next thing is we're doing some safety grant amendments due to the fact that we did not do a maintenance contract on the audio and video door equipment with Bank Pack, because we found out that it's cheaper not to do the maintenance contract and just wait till there's an issue, and then we pay for the issue from there. So we're going to take that funding and we're going to add some more, actually buy some more batteries for the AEDs that the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department donated to us, so that we can get those ready to go and use. So we'll have 2 more additional AEDs in the district that we'll place at Cannon County High School. And I forget, I've got it written down somewhere.
Who's trained to use those AEDs at the high school?
Everybody.
Have we trained any students on them?
They do have training.
Okay.
They do. Especially through Miss Linda Cook's classes.
Okay.
So, and then plus they have to, they're like in an assembly and they show them where the AED's at and what has to be done. That's
I'm just
something we
thinking it
have to
might
do
be a
every year.
student need to use it on a teacher at some point.
Exactly, it could be, but that's we have to do that as part of our drills. And we use Vanderbilt, Project Adam, to make sure that we're in compliance every year with that. So that's what we're gonna do with that funding. We're just gonna shift it. I got approval today to do that. Also, there's enough funding to send our SRO officers to the state SRO convention. They've never been. There's 4 days of training and we have to get permission with Sheriff Young. And I sent an email to the SRO officers to see if they were interested first, because of course it's time away. But then I'll have Mr. Curtis talk with Sheriff Young to see if that's possible. And that's something that Rutherford County, I talked to them and they said that they do that every year, that it was a good program and that's how they get their training. The COVID supplies, this is the last month we can order those. I'm afraid the funding is drying up for that. So we are going to order for the next 2 months and into summer school so that we kind of stockpile a little bit in case those items are needed at the beginning of the year and the funding is not available. And we're getting ready to do school safety assessments. It's that time of the year. This year we had to go through new training for that, 2-hour training. I completed mine last week. Principals are all going to have to be trained this year. In the past, there's been a team, the Canyon County High School principal, myself, and the 2 SRO officers. Now every principal has to be trained. They always walk with us when they do the assessments, but the state now requires them to be part of the team, part of the training, which I agree with that. So that's going to be something we discuss tomorrow. From those assessments, we gather the data and that's how we decide what to do with the safety grant money each year. And we focused on communication because that was the number 2 area. The first one was secure access, and we'll have to look at where our bus radio situation's at and then determine what needs will need to be met for the upcoming year. But
I
that's
can
it.
piggyback off that just a second. Radios they were working on the repeater sites right before Easter, so they were being done. So they'll go to bus installation here very soon. So I'm excited about that. And then we'll train our bus drivers in the proper use of radios. And we look and see, make sure our coverage, working with Roy Sullivan, and making sure our coverage is good throughout the county, because there are some dead spots. And hopefully we're going to find where those spots are that we can increase the coverage. But Roy Sullivan is working hand in hand with the installers to make sure it's done according to our specifications. So I'm
That's gonna
excited,
be
excited about
a
that.
great asset, great asset for principals to be able to hold those buses.
Ms. Hart units, are they available for ball games when the ball games are on?
Yes. Yes. All right,
Like
thank you.
softball and soccer and all that?
Well, the athletics department has an AED, so they should be on site at every game. So that's something,
You know they're doing that?
no, I don't, I need to check on that. That's under the athletic
Like I'm in
director's
a board
realm.
meeting right now. Can I call you back after a while or tomorrow? All right,
But I will check on that tomorrow.
right. Okay, we'll do it. All right, thanks, sir. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're all right. There's, item number 4, approval to apply for the Perkins Reserve Grant. I don't remember a year when we didn't do that.
We do. It's a procedure a normal procedure that we do every year. Ms. Kennedy's she's unmuted right there. So, Ms. Kennedy, would you talk about this year's Perkins Reserve Grant? 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. There are actually 2 sections of the grant this year. We typically in years past have always applied for the secondary grant. That's up to $50,000 in award money. This past year, I efforted applying for the regional pathway certification. So we were chosen and selected to be a certified regional pathway. So that actually opens up another pot of money for the regional career pathways grant, which is another portion of Perkins Reserve. And that has an option of up to $200,000. and possible money for that one as well.
So how much total, Crystal, did you say? I'm sorry.
That's okay. So total between those two would be a potential $250,000. I'm going to piggyback on that as well. I had been speaking with Mr. Nichols this past week regarding the Innovative High School Models Grant. I believe you sent that out to the leadership team at the high school, Mr. Curtis. That is completely separate from Perkins Reserve, but I thought I would go ahead and just kind of throw that out there. It's pretty fast tracked, that grant. The reserve, go ahead.
I said a substantial amount in that grant that's available. That's
Definitely, yeah, definitely a substantial amount. That's not something I think that my position would spearhead. I have no problem in, of course, assisting in that as needed. That grant is between $750,000 up to $2 million. The state has allocated $14.3 million as the pot of money for that grant, but it's pretty fast tracked. I mean, the deadline is May 7th is the turn in date, so that's kind of a quick turnaround.
It is. Every grant coming in is like that, Crystal. Every one of them is about, it's turnaround is boom, boom. But I think in the press release, it said that about 20 of those grants across the state will be given. And it's in
Right.
it's in working in partnerships with local businesses as well as a particular high school, one particular high school.
Right, and that's also the second portion, the pathways portion of the Perkins Reserve. I've already reached out to Dr. Torrance at Motlow, President Motlow there, as well as Becky Hull, the member of the Upper Cumberland Workforce Development. So I have them on board. We're going to have a preliminary talk on that this week to discuss roles and how we can help each other out in applying for that grant for the $200,000 section. The $50,000, that first one that we apply for every year, that's something that I can do in-house myself.
Literally start a program. $2 million.
Well, $2 million, you could start a program. I mean, it's that, but you got to work in conjunction with a local business is the push on that grant.
Local
With
as in like-
local industry.
Does it have to be in Cannon County?
That's the question, Crystal. That's a good question. Does it have to
I
be?
would say not. I've not. I haven't dived into that one. My focus, of course, are the two that I can control. So I'm going to try to get that pot of money that I personally have control over. My advice would be to form a team. Mr. Nichols and I sat down for about an hour this week and discussed this grant and possibilities for our high school. Possibly, I had asked questions about to a core personnel at the state office this past week about that grant and what it means for our middle grades, and possibly using some funding for that group of students. So there's a lot up in the air. I've not just dived into it. Of course, you know that I teach all day too. So in my quote spare time, that's when I've had to look into that. So he and I are gonna meet. Also, we have some time carved out Thursday morning to revisit this grant and kind of go over some kind of brainstorm some ideas.
I appreciate your work on the Perkins Reserve. You do it every year, and I appreciate it. I guess this is what, your third or fourth year doing the Perkins Reserve?
It is, yes, sir.
So what do they do with that money above what we budget at CET? So what do they have, what is it earmarked for?
Well, you're talking about if we were to get that other grant
No,
on the
you
Perkins
purchased.
Reserve.
Perkins Reserve, you said we done it before.
So we have, and Crystal, you want to talk about what you've done in the past with Perkins Reserve and any money above what is budgeted, what you do with that?
Definitely. So this past year, we were approved for 46,000, just over 46,000 of the $50,000. Of course, that has to be, it goes through probably 3 different approval processes before we actually are awarded the money. I believe 44 of the 110 individual school districts that tried to get the grant, 44 of the 110 were awarded. So we were lucky to get 46,000 of our requested 50. So this past year, what we did is we utilized, of course, with COVID going on last year, we tried to focus a lot on possible ways to expand our work-based learning in a virtual environment. We tried to, that money was actually allocated. We started a print shop at the high school. So the issue with work-based learning is we have students who are willing and able to work, but we have industries and businesses that did not have their doors open to our employees, to our students, due to the health situation going on. So what we had to do as a district is decide how I could meet that need. How can we meet that need in-house without having to have every single student go to work? Luckily, we are fortunate enough to have a lot of our students actually at work on location, but we are able to meet that need on our campus as well. Another section of that went to, actually half of the money went to expanding CTE exposure at the middle grades level. So we were able to purchase, assuming we get this fixed, we were able to purchase Major Clarity, which is going to be a huge resource. And then it's a career exploration platform that basically follows the students from 6th grade throughout their entire high school career. They're able to take interest surveys, their test scores are loaded in there, and it kind of helps them understand careers and options in the CTE world. And then we also purchased Google Expedition program. It should be arriving this month. It was on drastic back order because everybody was trying to purchase that in hopes of being able to utilize that at that middle grades level. So my two focuses last year were expanding our work-based learning and school-based enterprise, and then of course, exposure to those middle grades level. This year, I'm going to continue to, the plan is to continue to, with the Major Clarity, to extend that to the middle grades level. And then the bulk of that money this year, fingers crossed we get it, is going to be to expand our STEM program. We're in year 3 of STEM. So the next class in that program of study is AP Computer Science. So with that, what I'm wanting to do is hopefully kind of broaden that into a little bit of coding, a little bit of incorporating 3D printers and high-level drones and things like that to expand that STEM program there at the high school.
And that's good. The STEM program needs to be expanded. That's one way to do that is from additional funding for equipment that needs to be done there. Right?
It's the only way to do it, really. It's the only way to do it. The only money that we have kind of to pull from. So.
Nursing program 1 year.
Yeah, the nursing program was done. That was back, about 3 years ago, Crystal? That was the
it was the year before, so probably 4 to 5 years ago.
We got
he was able to outfit the entire health science lab at the high school. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we spent like $150,000 on that grant.
Right. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Not even using it.
We're not using it. We're not using it. We're using part of it, correct, Crystal? Because
right. Miss Cook's able to utilize part of it. Its of course intended goal was the CNA program, so it was utilized there for a while. I would anticipate or hope that that program will be added back next year.
And we're hoping to redo some assignments where that is done. Mr. Nichols is being very innovative in his plans for next year. Hopefully we can get that completed and get that back, and for Ms. Cook can supervise those, as well as we have an additional, some additional programming there. So.
Did she retire or semi-retired?
Ms. Cook, no, she's not retired. She's good.
She's full time.
But Christy, yeah, the other one left us, and we couldn't find another one that would come back part-time. We had COVID too, that they were not available going to nursing.
Does that position have to be an RN or can it be an LPN?
It is supposed to be an RN at this time. We fight the state often on that because that's a tough position to fill. RNs obviously can double their income plus not in the school setting. So it's takes a special person willing to come to the high school to teach those programs for us.
That's a BSN too, not just a regular RN, but a BSN.
Right. It has to be a 4-year degree. Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions while we have CT Director Ms. Crystal here with us tonight? Okay, I hope you're feeling better, Crystal. I know you were out today, so thanks for
I
coming in.
All right, thank you.
All right. Item number 5 is review the interscholastic athletic policy.
That's
I'll
cheap.
be making a motion to table it.
You're all ready to present everything? I know you've worked pretty hard on it.
No, we're still kicking around a consensus on grades, how grades should be handled.
We don't have any of that in board policy.
No,
No.
No, sir.
No,
Zero.
Never have.
And high schools relied on, TOSAA, but they do it on a yearly
I
basis.
don't care what you do during the year.
it's, yep.
They just penalize you at the end of the year. So we
I
let's do.
find that amazing. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, it is
there's
amazing.
nothing,
It was done individually by coaches, basically, is what
Yeah.
TOSAA said.
the coaches make the decisions.
They don't even care about your insurance.
Per school basis.
They don't care about your insurance. They say just don't sue us. Yeah.
Yep.
The indemnity agreement is exactly what it says. But, no, Wade's done a lot of work on that. Basically, Wade, you want to tell them what you got 3 different
Yeah, there'll be-
handbooks that's coming out.
It should be kind of in the back of our present policy, which we've amended a couple of lines to include middle school grades, not school, and elementary. And it mainly deals with homeschoolers. And we're kicking around now that we're wondering, should we make it policy that they get their liability insurance before they even try out? And Courtney said he's on board that they should have it before they try out. Because tryouts come in such different times before the August 15th. Theoretically, they could go to tryout
In May,
in May and
Get her.
actually practice before the 15th, they have to bring the paperwork up. So,
and the 2 steps, they have to submit it to me and then submit it to the principal and then show the insurance coverage by August the 15th. But they could have been practicing the entire summer, correct? I'm looking at Miss Bonnie because she
yeah,
helps with homeschooling and she's not gonna say nothing, but she
I'll
knows.
say yes.
She-
they will.
But then theoretically, that could occur and has occurred.
So then there's the high school and middle grades will have a policy. Which it's already it's begun, it's about 7 or 8 pages, it's real long policy. And then behind that will be a 2-page, 3-page elementary policy. And the elementary band just now deals with basketball. And they haven't changed theirs in 2016. It's still,
They have a little bit, I think maybe in 18 or something, but it was like a
it
cost.
still
of
had the
volume.
old price for students.
We have several leagues, like the junior pro and then the football and everything else.
Correct.
What do they do? I know that's not
Junior pro falls under the high school.
technically school.
I think it's coach's discretion, isn't it?
Well, that's up to those individual organizations for their insurance policies that they have. I'm sure Dixie Youth has a policy,
Well, TYBA covers.
yeah, that's what I said,
the county,
TYBA.
But your
Yeah.
junior pro I don't know where that falls.
So if somebody gets hurt in our gym, playing junior
Then our
pro,
Tennessee Risk Management would cover that because it's on our property. And it was
Okay.
under a sanctioned deal because our basketball program is actually running junior pro.
right, that's fun.
So there's where that falls. But your other sports, your other leagues, with their, I know soccer's been talked about here locally, with some groups out of Murfreesboro who would like to come in and help form a rec soccer league. But I'm trying to think, your softball, girls softball, is that under TYBA, Derek, or not? I don't know.
On
Yeah.
right there with Dixie
You
Youth.
talking about,
Okay,
But now.
Rec
in
center?
middle school,
yeah, rec center, yeah.
Everything down there, if you signed up with the Dixie Youth Association, then
Which is a
Covered.
misnomer. We're
Right.
not actually
Right.
Dixie Youth.
no, it's,
And we can be sued for using that. Been warned about that.
okay, my
basketball
ignorance
association or
there.
whatever, but We're covered, any player signs up under that league in town is covered by TYBA.
They have a blanket policy because they're not just here, they're in Shelbyville.
Right, yeah.
Eagleville and-
Organization.
Yeah, it's pretty large.
Gotcha.
But the biggest thing is they can't get us because they're on county property. They're not allowed on the high school field.
No.
And your junior lines goes to the high school, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, all this.
Baseball, the junior line's baseball, and then the same thing they're utilizing the girls
Football's
softball.
gone back.
Yeah,
to the high
football
school.
is at the high school, yeah, football's all at the high school, yeah.
I talked to Will about that.
Varsity, middle school and junior football all's coming up under.
He's thought about using the
Uh,
practice
Matt
field
Dale.
to fairgrounds just
Mhm.
in the future at some point because of the transportation issues and all that, but
I had a question today from a parent, that their child will be doing Tennessee Virtual Academy in the upcoming year, which is a public school, wanting their student to play sports in Cannon County because a virtual public school does not have a sporting team. So I'll put that on your list to investigate, Wade.
the Tennessee
So
virtual
that's
school
different than homeschooling.
is an approved
It's different.
public school in Tennessee, but
They take our funding.
I think they got a virtual team.
They take the BEP funding.
they do take their BEP funding away from us, yes, sir.
And it goes to that
And
county.
it goes to that county that does that virtual schooling.
So
Well, you
they
know,
register with you though, right?
no.
They don't register you at
They
all?
don't have anything.
No,
to
they
do.
don't have to. It's
do,
public
I
school.
mean, they do, they send me
They
their
list.
name, but I don't submit it to the state, so no, they're a public school student. It would be like when we've had students come from Rutherford County, or we went to Rutherford County, some students of ours did to play soccer before we had
Mhm.
soccer. So
Or if they wanted to play
Technically-
track, now would be.
Yeah,
a-
it was
if
just
you wanted
magnet.
track,
technically they could, because their school does not offer the sport,
Right.
but
So you may wanna add that in on the homeschool part, virtual school. or
it would be just, they could try out. That doesn't mean that, I mean, that's the rule, that they're allowed to try out to make the team.
Now, maybe something at the high school level, you could talk to Tennessee, the TWSAA about, and are they considered homeschool or are they considered,
No, they're not home.
they're not homeschool, but how do you consider that
I bet they don't recognize them.
under the, or they're saying that their school does not offer that particular sport. And so since they do, they can go to the nearest, under the TWSAA rules, if that school doesn't offer that sport, then you can try out at the nearest place that does offer that sport.
But I'm wondering if TSSAA only recognize their sanctioned school. A school that's in the TSSAA family.
Correct. I don't know. That's something
Probably
we'll
a
have to check.
virtual school is not gonna be in their family.
I don't know if it's based, unless it's based out of, where is it?
What
Union
division
County or
are
something
they
like
in,
that.
what classification are they in?
I think it may be based out, let's say it's based
They don't
out of
recognize
another
that.
county in Tennessee,
They don't recognize county, they recognize school.
right?
So
Virtual school, I don't know. That's something TWSAA needs to,
I don't think they probably could go play in high school.
their athletic director will have to contact us and see, TWSAA and see what the ruling is on that. I'm sure there's a ruling on it, but I don't know.
Their insurance wouldn't cover them, I guarantee you.
No, that'd be on us, but that's what I'm saying. Do we recognize that as a homeschool or do you?
I don't know.
No,
No, you don't recognize it as a school, but are they insured from their school system through an entity like Tennessee Risk Management?
I think you're gonna have to follow whatever TWSAA tells you to follow.
Yeah.
For that.
Interesting.
Is that a very big program?
It's getting bigger all the time.
It is.
We get a lot of people back, though. They go and they don't stay long. Like they leave us and go to their program and then they come back.
Do they have to pay for that program?
No,
Oh, that's why.
they give you a computer. I've had
It's one
several,
that's advertised on television.
I've had
Right?
several come back this year. That
I
was
say if
last
they
year.
paid for it, they'd probably stick with it.
Mhm. Parents were,
All right, that's something I'll check out.
I had just one question. I kind of missed it a little bit here on the grades and who actually in the high school, is it the coach that actually
Yeah,
decides that the kid can
this
play?
is a,
Because we
The
don't have
coach?
anything in writing.
This has been an
But you understand how bad that is.
Yes, we do.
Yes, sir. we do.
That's why we're trying to fix it.
But now,
Well, we're all new, so
okay, it just seems to
Yes.
be kind of,
I've been working on this 3 years. That's before I even got on the board. I've been working on this 3 years.
because, look, as a coach, my job kind of depends on us winning a little bit. I darn sure don't want to sit a star player if my job is dependent on the line.
Yeah.
So, I think you would be better off with maybe an outside board of teachers to review their grades or something and not have the coach involved at all.
Well, we didn't explain what was being petitioned.
we're putting a policy in place across the board.
What you didn't know, and I didn't read it because we didn't go over the policy, but right now we have a 3-week report that comes out during the 9 weeks. So
Every 3 weeks. so
3 weeks, every 3 weeks. So they were kicking around, you gotta have an incentive. We all believed that we had to have an incentive for a kid to play sports. In other words, if you've got a kid sitting in credit recovery with 4 credits to recover, like this incentive is just what? I mean, it's like he can do anything. It doesn't make any difference if he passes or not, as long as the coach said he can play, And we like to have something there to kind of push the kid along to like, hey, I think I better start studying. But we didn't want it to be like, okay, at the end of 9 weeks, you failed. Something that's over with. Let's monitor it every 3 weeks. First time around, it would be sort of like a warning that you're in danger. We're going to give you 3 weeks to catch this up. You're going to have to start working. It's up to the coach to monitor that. It's up to the DA to monitor, the athletic AD to monitor that, the principal to monitor that. So he goes into a pool and he's going to have to be monitored. And then therefore, at the end of the 3 weeks, if he hasn't, then disciplinary actions. He can sit out 3 weeks and he's got another 3 weeks to catch up again. And so it's just a little incentive to say, look, it's just not willy-nilly. You coach and you say, I don't care, my kids failed. This coach says I need all A's. We had no policy in it with any kind of uniform policy. And that's what we're trying to develop.
No, that's
A
great.
uniform policy.
Just having the coach be in charge of it just scares the
No.
daylights out of me.
That's 2.
That's putting Mickey Mouse over the cheese factory. That really works. But stay tuned and hopefully we'll have that next month, something for you to look at.
That's kind of like that. We started work 2 years ago on the transfer policy, reasons that you could transfer. And we finally just had to put a cutoff date on it because you can never cover everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there are reasons out there that would never cross your mind that a child would want to go to a different school.
Yeah.
Just think about it. And we tried, but it failed miserably. So we we just put a cutoff date on it, and we really requested now that the parents come at least to the workshop. They don't have to come to the board meeting, but they need to come to the workshop to present the case, to tell us why, because legally, if that child does not cause overcrowding at a school, they can go to any school they want. As long as you don't have to hire another teacher, then we are not bound. We can't hold them. You can't. We were talking about zoning, and that's been brought up several times. We can rezone as much as we want, okay? You can rezone as much as you want, but if that child chooses to stay in the building that they're in and it's not causing overcrowding, you can't move that child.
Correct.
You can't move that child. That child there is no recourse to that. There is no anything. But the state of Tennessee put that into law several years ago, and you can't do anything about it. Do I think we need to rezone in a few cases? Yeah, but as long as, you can't, as long as it doesn't cause overcrowding, you can't keep them from moving. But we do have an in-board policy now that we try to get that done by.
And our zone exemption begins May 15th and June 15th, and that's pretty well, they're approved unless it's going to cause an overcrowding issue during that time. After that, they can appeal to you 10 days after the start of school, which usually is around that August board meeting, is they can appeal during
We
that
always
time.
have several. I mean, I signed 6, 7, much as 10 or 15 sometimes, but not, It's kind of backed off 3 or 4 last year, I believe, you know, I don't know. When we
But
first
you'll get
started
that, board members, you'll see that this year. It will be some of your first times that you'll have to sign that transfer. And if they are grandfathered in, meaning that they've had one transfer, we don't require them to do that again unless there's an overcrowding issue comes about. So that's usually not a problem at all. The brother sisters already started, you know, they were zone wood and they only go east side, okay. We don't have them to redo it every year. That was a part of the deal. And board says, no, once you do it, you got it unless it's an overcrowding issue. But normally it's the new zone exemptions that you'll get during the month of May 15th to June 15th. And last year I was very liberal with allowing them to, very lenient about the deadline. And I allowed that to go over because of COVID. You know, but the deadline is June the 15th. We try to announce that. And everybody's, you know, if you're doing that,
Well,
principals know to.
we did put it in that policy director's discretion, so there's a lot of that you can handle that approaching the board, but if they reach the deadline, then I would like them to come at least talk to us and tell us why. But anyway.
And after, and a lot of times, a few cases I have done this discretion because of medical conditions or court orders. I've had to do a couple of that to come into place, but I use that very sparingly unless there's some situation that we, you know, Ms. Black and I work together on that. Lisa and I work very close on that as our intake person of the situations. And there are certain situations that occur, DCS matters and those things that I have signed over.
I remember last year, 3 kids was moved at once to east side from west side. Everybody else meetings hadn't been to me.
That was, I think it was August or September. Maybe.
Yeah, it's probably the
Right
August.
before, yeah, it was right before me, you got.
Yeah.
And that's why, because they met that 10-day deadline right there at the front of school. It's why the board had to deal with that. But they've got, you know, 10 days after it starts to appeal.
Just the reason I brought that up was so when you're covering that and you're looking at that, there's no really black and white in it. There's a whole lot of gray.
Yeah.
You never cover everything, but I find it hard to believe that I had always taken it that we had a grades thing there because everybody's, well, he's setting out, his grades are not good enough for this.
Now, at
I
the
didn't know-
A lot of it was us though, as parents, of our
That's
kids.
true.
At the elementary level, though, that is enforced big time in
They can't
basketball.
fail any of the 5 main subjects. They have to set out.
At the elementary level, but the middle
That's in
grades
their
level.
policy.
And the middle grades thing, and Wade will tell you, that has come upon us over the last few years. You first started with middle grades basketball, then middle grades softball, middle grades baseball, and middle grades trap team, middle grades fishing team. I mean, you get all these, you're gonna have a middle grades soccer team eventually. All of that's coming at us, and and we're not a member of the Tennessee Middle School Association because every one of our 6 elementary schools would have to become a member of the Tennessee Middle School Association. So that's $700-800 per school that they'd have to raise to do that, or the board would have to pay that. And they said no, we're not going to do that. And so you look at a sanctioned sport, and many of those sports have been looked at as travel ball team type things instead of representing Cannon County. Well, they're a Cannon County school. If we're representing the Cannon County school system, then our rules apply.
All right. Let's move on. Item number 6, discuss the virtual learning for 2021-2023 school year. Do you guys really want to discuss this?
Oh, that's I had it, so I guess I'm the culprit. I didn't want to discuss it. I wanted just to come up with something and say, look, we're not going to go totally out anymore. We've already tried a every other day plan that worked at the high school. We can do it at any level. That's all I wanted to say.
In my opinion.
Unless it's
just my opinion, that the virtual for maybe less than 10% of your 10% of your kids will work, the rest of them, it's a travesty.
that's why I brought it up.
Well, let's just hope we don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I do, but it's been proven here that it doesn't work.
No.
Children need a teacher. and they
What
need
my
to be in the
recommendation would be, Mr. Chairman, on that is that you got the statement next year, the 2021-2022 school year is all in-person learning unless they have a homebound medical situation.
Which would be normal anyways.
You're exactly right.
I can go A, we can go AB, we have to.
And if we do encounter another time where those numbers rise back up, the high school proved, we saw what happened right after Thanksgiving, right after fall break, and right after Thanksgiving. We saw what wasn't going on and happening, and we saw the amount of failures that Mr. Nichols was encountering there. And then you have now, we saw the AB schedule that was developed by the high school, and we saw much better participation because they were there part of the week. We'd rather have them part of the time as none of the time. So
That's a good time to go back over this. We had to close Auburntown for how long?
2 weeks,
2 weeks.
2 weeks there in
And that is the
September.
only, we closed the rest of the schools because of the county numbers, not because of the school numbers.
Correct.
Right.
Because it was widespread over the county. And some
I understand it, but we didn't-
individual
we
schools-
didn't have, besides the one incident in Auburntown, which it was the staff mainly. It really
Correct.
wasn't the,
Yes, sir.
it got a lot of staff. The kids, we never, Miss Bonnie, did we have one that really, we didn't.
At Auburntown?
except the high school. Auburn-
Did have an issue at Auburntown, but it was mainly due to staff.
Well,
And
I know
some
my
students.
son got it there.
But it
And
was,
some
it
students.
was not a
Yeah,
high.
well,
We've had students that have COVID. in
Yeah,
every
I know we
school.
had some, but we didn't have.
Not enough to close the schools.
Yeah.
It's been more contacts.
There were,
Yeah, contacts is what gets you.
yeah, I understand. There were 6 or 7 staff members at Auburntown, I think. that came
I
back.
think at one time, yes, sir, and then that affected about half of the students that were in contact, not that they had it.
Cafeteria was shut
The
down.
cafeteria
The
was shut
cafeteria
down.
was shut down. Your secretary, I mean, and the whole deal was pretty well smashed. So we had to, and we knew, we were really, we had gone pretty good there, and then we had that incident, and then we did great until fall break. And then after fall break, here it hit. About 2 weeks after fall break, boom.
Then Thanksgiving.
And then here we go, after Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, we predicted that. Did we not, Miss Bonnie? We predicted that. Here comes right after Thanksgiving, and guess what?
We
It
did
lasted.
have a conversation about that. And he just said, well, you've got Christmas, you've got, it goes on and on, it never ends. So you can't just, that's another one of those things, you can't cover it all, but
So when the numbers started rising at Kenny County High School again, that's where Miss Nichols and I got together and said, okay, we need to try something. The high school came up and said, let's try it. Can we try? We've done everything else. Why not try this? And then we don't have the failures. And guess what? It worked incredibly well. So kudos to,
I did hear a lot of positive comments from a lot of the grammar school teachers that they really enjoyed the day.
The flex
once
days.
in a while to just work on children that needed the help. Everyone else that was passing could go on, they get a day every so often and just focus on the kids that needed the help. And they said it helped them tremendously.
I just want to say that I've had to file a truancy petition, and every truancy that I'm working is virtual learners. They have been a virtual learner at one point for an extended time. So that created several days, unexcused days, where no work was being done, not logging in, that type of thing. And it's been a big issue.
so I think a statement saying that, or a motion stating that 2021, 2022 will be all in person unless there is a medical exemption via homebound, vis-a-vis homebound, then I think we'll take care of it. We've had a lot of people, Bonnie will tell you, a lot of people to come back that were on virtual and they're back and they wanted to be back. I think the parents wanted them to be back.
Will that take your flex days away if you so do it?
Well, we can probably do that. Depends on a number certainly on the flex days, but we might, and I think the flex days.
In your hands, or would
Yeah,
that have to be?
that's mine.
So if we made
That
the
we won't
motion-
have to adjust the calendar because it's still a school day and we just go, we go virtual except for those students that are failing. And I think teachers like that. And I think that's something we can look at as we move along toward our planning for 21, 22 is, do we want to build in some of those flex days? And that's a burden on parents. You get too many of those flex days, it's a burden on parents finding childcare and doing that. But
I was truly surprised at some of the people that came, some of the teachers, because they just come and sit there and how much they appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And it really makes a difference to
It did. On our
just
failures.
focus on the.
Well, I'll tell you one thing too. We didn't have the failures at the elementary school like we had at the high school.
Mhm.
And I think the reason why is because of those flex days. And then the high school started using those flex days big time. They were the ones that first came up with the part of the flex day concept is to use that. And so it worked good for them. And the elementary school, I think, were actually jealous. They wanted to try it too. And it worked well for everybody.
We haven't seen those high school numbers lately, where they stand on.
Oh, you're talking failures. Mr. Nichols has not given me a report recently. We'll get you.
We hadn't asked, but I was
Yeah.
thinking,
I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about it.
Now, they're beginning testing, so I'm gonna try to leave them alone best I can, because they're doing TCAP testing, beginning testing, so I'll get those numbers for you. So I don't think they're as nearly as bad as what we had there before.
I
Nearly.
hope not.
Oh, no, they're not nowhere near.
It's pretty,
Just like saying Mr. Nichols is on there, he can tell, but he's not. I'll see him on
pretty
there.
atrocious. It was. All right, anybody got anything else? All right, item number 7, board attorney contract. Mr. Curtis?
Mr. Chairman, you have the copy of the, members of the board, you have a copy of Mr. Michael R. Jennings' contract. I did a little research to find it. It goes all the way back to 17. Pre-Freddie Curtis coming to here, but we did find it. And you can see that all this is during, the TSBA recommends that you periodically go back and you look at this. This is I want you to know, as particularly new members of the board, on the board, that this is the contract that Mr. Bruce Daniel, former chairman, negotiated with Mr. Jennings back there. Mr. Jennings says he's not going to raise the rates, and he would like to just continue this, which is, we're getting, I think, a pretty good deal on it. We're getting a good bargain, I think. Bruce was a good negotiator, which is what I told Mr. Jennings earlier today when we discussed that. He would be here, but he is also the legal counsel for the Wilson County Commission. So he's the county attorney there, and he's having to be at one of their meetings tonight. So, but he did wanted me to tell you that he would be certainly glad to continue his contract and at the same cost that he did in 2017, which I think so.
I was trying to think back as far as I can remember. There hadn't been that many times that we had to use it.
No, but he does. I've contacted him more than you
Now,
think.
you would think that.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at his statements that he sends us every month, it just depends on how much that I've had to consult with him. But now to actually use him and go, he went with us, I think, over to the commission one night when we were dealing with an issue. And he's also been here on some of your board meetings. And but now utilizing his services in court or anything like that,
We haven't had.
not had to do that. So very fortunate on that. But that rate that he's doing is I think a very, very good rate for a man of his experience. I got to go out and try to price a few others in the market, and you'll see that's a good deal. But he's very knowledgeable, extremely knowledgeable.
TSBA, do they have furnace attorney also for certain matters?
It depends. Ben Torres certainly is their legal counsel, and Jennifer White. Jennifer White usually is about policy, and anytime you adopt a new policy or change policy, it's under her recommendation. It goes to her. So you're paying her a fee on top of
So
it.
if somebody sued us for policy differences,
You could probably,
they
you
would
could probably
probably,
use both,
would
utilize both
they
attorneys.
represent? Okay.
You'd have to go back, you'd have to go back, and I would say that to TSBA is what you probably need to answer that question to Ben, or to say, what would be ever use your legal counsel. But they've got 3 attorneys in their office right now at TSBA. But you're correct, if they were to do a board action
I
type.
can see where they wouldn't cover everything.
That's correct,
something
but
they're
that's
directly
something that's
involved
policy, of its policy, they'll be wide open on it, especially since it's a policy that you adopted of theirs. Right.
Had anybody any questions? There, quiet.
No.
All right. Item number 8. Mr. Curtis, I don't have any resumes.
You won't, because the law has changed since the last time you did this, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
If you will look in your packet, and if you're listening online, you look at policy number 5.117. That's teacher tenure. This policy was adopted in 2019. Last year tenure was deferred because of COVID. And that was kind of put off. And then, so what I've done, we do not have LOE, and I'll send you a letter, I'll send you an email that I just sent to principals today. All I'm giving you is this is notice that tenure will be on the May agenda, and I will have a listing of those that are eligible for tenure. And it's my recommendation. If you look at what it says, to attain tenure status, a teacher shall, 1, meet tenure eligibility requirements, 2, be renewed and recommended by the director of schools, and 3, receive a majority vote of the board. Now, Chairman Phan was on the board previously. He was on the board previously, and in that policy previously was a major list of they've got to do this, they've got to do that, they got to do this, they got to do that. No, not anymore. Tenure law changed in the state of Tennessee during that time, and so you changed the policy back in 19. The board did back in 19, and it used to be there was a laundry list of checklists that you had to do: portfolios, resumes, recommendations by the principal, all of that. All of that changed. That was back in, I'm looking at the policy from 14, and you had 6 different records of excellence that you had to do to meet that criteria. That all changed when the legislation changed in the state legislature. So that changed. And so now you see this is what's in TCA. You're looking at a mirror copy of the Tennessee tenure law. You're looking at what's in TCA.
So considering last year,
Mhm.
how are you going to determine?
LOE, level of effectiveness, correct? Here's how we're doing it.
I was going to say, most of them didn't get to teach last year.
You didn't because they didn't test.
Right.
So there's no LOE.
Right.
As part of their testing. So here's what happens. You have to go back to those that had qualified in 18-19. Because here's what happens. We don't get LOE until September, October timeframe. So since you don't get that September, October timeframe, you don't do tenure in October. You wait and you do that previous until till school ends. Because if you're going to release somebody, you release them there at the end of the year, not in October, November, or whatever. So we have to go back to 18 and 19 to the last time that we had level of effectiveness because of test scores. And so what you're going to see is nobody, you have to have 5 years. If you look down at that, approved degree, have to be a Tennessee teacher license, has completed a probationary period of 5 years and not less than 45 months within the last 7-year period, the last 2 years being employed in a regular teaching position than in an interim position. Okay, and then look at number 4. This is where we had to do that, Jennifer, and that's this. Has received evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of, quote, above expectations, which is a 4, or significantly above expectations, which is a 5, as provided in the evaluation guidelines adopted by the State Board of Education during the last 2 years of the probationary period.
All right, I got a question.
Okay.
Derek has 7 kids. I have 25. We both teach first grade. The likelihood of him getting a 4 and me getting a 4, I'm probably not going to get a 4 with 25 kids.
Well, in first grade, I can tell you.
Well, I've just used first grade,
That would be
whatever.
that would be portfolio.
Okay, but
Now, if you
okay,
were-
7th grade.
Okay, 7th grade. Is that an equitable playing field?
No. So how do you do that?
I go by what he actually made, 4s or 5s. That's what
But
you
if
have
he
to do.
only has 7 kids and I have 25.
Understand your argument very much so. But, Derek chose to be at a particular school that had 120 students instead of 350 students. He chose that too. Or the high school, I'll tell you something even more. I'm an elementary teacher for 16 years, got my tenure under elementary. And then I became a principal and then I went on to high school. Had some of your children in high school, okay, 10 years I was there. You know what my scores were based upon? English. I'm a government teacher.
I'm saying, any teaching.
My scores were based on English, what happened with freshman English kids that I wouldn't see for another 3 years. Now, was that fair? Or another 2 years? Was that fair? No. And then when they said I had to give the civics test as a part of them graduating high school, guess what I did? I did the pre-test and post-test data and had that. I couldn't even use that on my evaluations. So, I mean, and
Is
that's
this
have to
our
give
policy or is this a state
You
policy?
have
state.
to, you have to give tenure. You
No,
have to consider
No,
tenure.
I have to recommend and then you decide.
I mean, do you even have to do that?
Yes. Yes, by law.
Last year.
We didn't, we got an exemption because of COVID last year. And we didn't have, and then we didn't test.
How many times have you not recommended tenure?
Myself personally, as director in my 3 years as
Yes.
director, I've only had to recommend tenure once since I've been director.
Not recommend me?
No, on that one time that I recommended tenure, I
Okay.
mean, at the instance,
Years past, it
Yeah.
mainly depended on the principal.
depending on principal's recommendations.
As it should be. They're the ones that work with them every day. We don't. I mean, I know some of them, but some of those teachers I don't even know. It wouldn't be fair for me to decide if I'm gonna keep that teacher over there that I've never even met before.
Somebody else's recommendation.
And that's where you went by principal's recommendations.
I like that better than the
And now
7 and
you're gonna have
25
to-
equation.
Now you're gonna go by my recommendations, but I wouldn't, but see, but you could go, let's say, let me do another scenario for you. You could have a teacher making threes for the last 10 years and never come up for tenure, and you never have to vote for it. But they've been effective enough that principal recommends for them to be hired back.
So basically, the principal still give you a recommendation.
Correct.
They're still doing scoring.
And principals are doing recommendations, and remember, it's not just on test scores.
Right.
LOE is, and y'all know that, y'all been through your training. So it's not just on test scores, but it's on their observations. And you have a percentage, and they've adapted that because of COVID.
Right.
They've adapted those percentages. So, the principal recommends that to me.
We go back to the evaluations, and evaluations don't match test scores.
That's the problem.
But
There's another equity issue,
They
Mr.
get a 5 on the evaluation, they get a 1 on their test.
How do they get a 5 on their evaluation if
That's based
their
upon
kids are failing?
principals. That's based upon the principal's evaluation process.
If my soldiers are not doing what they're supposed to, I'm not gonna get a good evaluation.
Can't explain that, but that's how they hang on to their job.
But you could be making threes and never, theoretically serve for X amount of years and never come up for tenure. But the principal, as long as it's meeting those expectations of your principal,
In our
He's
situation.
recommending-
But you're not meeting that expectation if your kids are failing.
that's true. That's up to the principal to make sure that's done. And myself. It
That's
is.
why these kids go to college and quit.
I kind of got the same thing at work though. I gotta get people in. I mean, I have to still give them an evaluation in here. And I don't have a reason to fire them, and they do good at their job, but they may not never excel enough for me to give them that next step, but I have no reason to fire them.
But leave them right there.
That's what you're doing, tenure. You're gonna leave them right there.
But you're dealing with adults, we're dealing with kids. And we're letting those kids, we're failing those kids by keeping a teacher that's letting those kids fail.
That's where you're gonna go, and then you're gonna fail them in line. If you ain't careful.
And then principals' recommendations are critical, they're crucial, especially on the recommendations to hire back and not. The a non-tenured teacher, you just don't put them on the rehire list and they're not back.
Well,
It's as simple as that. So there's two things, tenure and non-tenured, tenured people and non-tenured.
Tenure just basically secures their job.
That's correct.
Not-
Under this, not totally.
Right. I mean, obviously, if there's no
James
job
just
for
said
them, they don't have a job.
what I like to call the old tenure, like what, Bonnie would.
Go ahead and say it.
You
Say it all.
Mr. Cortez,
Every time y'all say, oh, y'all
Miss-
point to me.
Miss Norma.
My wife,
Right.
it takes an act of Congress to fire them. This new tenure, I wouldn't be as afraid to do this 2 years of continuous bad test scores, and
You're gone.
You're gone.
Well, you have to give that teacher a chance to get
But
better.
now in the
And
past,
improvement
We have to
plans.
document it.
Correct.
in the past, when you
We found that out.
passed that, it literally took an act of Congress to move someone in. Now it's.
Now, one thing I will tell you too, Jacob, on that too, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if you'll look at the bottom of the second page, page 2, tenure can be zonked.
You can't,
It can be negated.
but.
But notice what the last
I
sentence
came
says.
into your office and had that discussion with you a long
Yes, sir.
time ago. Up until 2 years ago, we had no documentation whatsoever.
That was my next question. If a teacher gets ones, do we, I don't know what they call it. I call them counselings. Do we do something?
Improvement plan, yes, ma'am.
You can.
So you have files on teachers that have ones?
Absolutely.
He
So we
does-
have a paper
Our
trail.
principals.
He
absolutely,
does now.
yes.
He didn't.
No,
You
before
have
then.
to.
I
How
did.
long
Forwarding
have
that.
you had those?
I've been director for 3 years. I just had my
Okay.
3rd year anniversary.
So there was
April
nothing
the
before
1st.
you.
April the 1st. No, ma'am.
Those-
Now, principals had individual notebooks and records.
those-
So-
That's Mr. Curtis.
So,
I
so-
went to his office and had a long conversation. And
so now principals have the paper trail on, but now please note the last sentence in the policy. That's what Jalen was talking about. That section about probationary status can be reduced, tenure can be reduced back down to probationary status, but does not apply to teachers acquired tenure prior to July 1, 2011.
So how many teachers do we have before 2011 that have ones?
Not many.
I didn't figure.
Had already been
Right. They're probably the ones that are
taken care
retiring.
of by the, I'm sorry.
I said they're probably the ones that are
I
retiring.
gotta recover here on that one, but yes, you are correct, is that a lot of older teachers.
I mean, if they're not gonna, if there's no repercussions for making a one, why should they do any better?
That's correct. And there's improvement
I
plan,
mean-
but the improvement plan, and hey, well, there was some not hired back. I'll put it that way. They were not hired back.
Reclassified.
Well, they were just not hired back.
Some
And
were
if they're non-hired, again, so if they're a non-tenured teacher, the board members, please listen. If they were a non-tenured teacher, you don't have to give them an explanation 1, 0.
Right.
But you gotta give them a chance if they've tried it.
How
if
many
they-
chances do we give them?
Well, you give an improvement plan. If those expectations weren't met on the improvement plan, then the principal says, I'm not recommending this teacher back. So,
I mean, I don't want any teacher
How
to
many
lose their
chances
job, but I don't
how many
want,
chances do you give?
I don't
How
want-
many chances do you give for some? years?
I
That's
don't.
what I'm saying.
you don't do what I say, you're in trouble. You get counseled, you get too many counsels, you can go to
There,
jail.
that's what's like, the counseling is the counsels that you call it is our improvement plan. And, nothing, the system's not perfect, it's not, but there is a way, and even tenured teachers can be dismissed under the appropriate reasons, absolutely.
Even TSBA says that.
And I'll back them up 100% on that. Even non-tenured teachers, even tenured teachers can be dismissed under the 5 reasons. And y'all know your policy, go back to your policy, look, there's 5 reasons that we can dismiss that particular ones.
So we're not gonna have any till May.
That's what we're.
This is your due notice that this will be on the May agenda, and it gives our time for me and to get with individual principals to determine who is on that list. And I-
Nothing to vote on.
So nothing to vote on, just say, Mr. Curtis has advised us, we will vote on tenure. This will be, Mr. Curtis, please put this on the agenda for the May meeting of the board. Okay, any other questions on that? And you got people that are really concerned about tenure, and they should be, especially those that should have gotten it last year but didn't get it because of COVID. And I totally agree with that. I would be one the same way.
We spent a lot of time on something there.
Oh, I have a lot more questions, but I can ask them later.
It's,
Give them a shot.
all right, item number 9,
But you,
review policy 6.100 through 6.319. Go ahead, Mr. Curtis.
okay, you've got your policies in front of you there. This is the third part 1 of the student section of board policy. And there you go. Please note on this page, look how many were changed in 20. Just about every one of them was changed in 20. And this is because of the state legislature and laws change and there you go. But all of them look what the board did in April of 20. And getting all of those, into play there. And again, this, you pay TSBA for this, for reviewing the policies and keeping them current. And they do an excellent job. In fact, they've gotten incredibly better at TSBA. As soon as I submit that, and Teresa Lewis, board secretary, submits that, it goes right to TSBA and they change it like within a day. They've got it changed. So that has gotten, the chairman will probably tell you that used to not be that way, but it is incredibly quick these days with those attorneys at TSBA.
Yeah, we approved them. And the next day they was just gonna see it. Not the next day.
Pretty quick. I mean, it's rapid compared to what used to be months before it would be updated. So you can look at those and all this, so that you've reviewed these, and you will have down to 3.19, and you'll have the rest of that section in the month of May, just as a review. But there's a lot of things on there. This is, to me, the personnel and the student section is the most important thing that we do. So these policies are the most important, one of the most important policies in board policy, in my opinion. Because you got zero tolerance, you got bus safety, you got dress code, you got use of personal communication devices, corporal punishment, detention, suspension, all of that is in that policy route. And I would ask you to go back through and read those policies and review. If you have any questions, get those questions to me, and we can talk about that, or you can desire to change something on board policy. But if you'll look at a lot of these, you look at the TCA code there, you'll find what that is. You're listening, that's Tennessee Code Annotated, or TCA code.
You ever work on the abbreviations and the
Acronyms.
In fact, I got a manual from the comptroller's office today in the mail. Did y'all get one of those in the mail?
I did.
Okay, maybe we need to request some more copies of that from the comptroller that has all the definitions and all the acronyms that we use. But I try not. I have been told in my former position as government teacher that I use an incredible amount of acronyms that I need to say. Not everybody knows those acronyms. So you have to.
It's hard, very hard to keep up with all of them. Because you guys use them every day, all day long. And we come in and sit down in a meeting, you rattle off about 5 of them in one sentence. And
What do we call that? One of those meetings that we used to do, was it jargon buster or whatever that we had to get that in plain English instead of the.
well, it's just hard to keep up with all of them. All right. Anybody got any questions for number 9? Item number 10, board invitation for a presentation at Auburn Town. We've got a couple folks here from Auburn Town.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper on the Zoom call is the one that had made the invitation.
Okay. And you are
I'm Marty Harris.
Marty Harris. And you're
Mark Tenpenny.
what?
Mark Tenpenny.
Mark Tenpenny.
Todd Paxson.
Thanks. I think we've had some.
Yes, we've had some conversations.
Yeah.
Derek, are you out there?
You have to unmute him.
I have Mr. Cooper. Is that who?
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask him to unmute if he's there.
Yes, I'm here. We just got finished up with the B team tournament. So
I don't think he heard what we were asking.
All right, we're on mute. You're unmuted now, Derek. So go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay.
Turner.
sorry about that. We just got done with the ball game. So
So Derek, they have questions about the meeting at Auburn.
yes, the meeting is just an open invitation to bring the board to Auburn. We just want to get the folks' faces out there and give a chance for them to ask questions, because I know some that don't know about Zoom and some still may be, doing the social distancing and everything. So it'd be a chance to get the board to come out and see the Auburn school and answer some questions. Of course, we would provide those questions beforehand and give you time to get the answers and everything together.
And it would be a controlled environment. We would stick with those 15 questions or so that we would give you pre-hand.
Well, I want to stop you right there. 15 questions could take up to 3 or 4 days to cover. And I'm being honest with you there.
We can limit it to whatever.
There are 5 of us, and there's a whole lot more of y'all. And you one question leads to another question.
Mhm.
Another question leads to another question, and it becomes extremely time consuming. Extremely.
What we had considered doing was taking questions beforehand from the community, picking out 10, 15, 5, whatever, presenting those questions, not random questions from the audience. That way you have the questions ahead of time, you're able to prepare for it. You don't have to worry about getting the numbers or whatever off the top of your head, and we have time to prepare also.
It's kind of like we did at the high school. They emailed me all the
Well,
questions.
that's where I'm going, I've been doing this for a while. I've done my best to try to build bridges with county commission. And sometimes it's accepted really well, sometimes it's not, but we set up one several years ago to discuss this very thing. I think it's been 2 years, hasn't it, Mr. Curtis?
Thereabouts, yes, sir.
There were 2 or 3 parents from every single school that showed up at that meeting. And I'm talking everyone in the county. This was well announced. Commission publicized it, the board publicized it. There were 2 or 3 people there. Now, this is where I'm going to leave you with this. I did it again about 1.5 years later. And I was the only one there representing the schools to the commission. I had another board member that showed up, but he didn't talk. I argued with all the commissioners that showed up for what, 2 hours, Mr. Curtis?
Yes, sir. Thereabouts.
Telling them what was gonna happen if something didn't change. Nothing changed. Fell on deaf ears. We did this again at the high school with the entire board. The entire board had a meeting at the high school about October. We had 2 or 3 from Short Mountain, and the rest were pretty much teachers and staff. Nobody came. I've been saying this for over 4 years, that we are at a point that we can no longer handle what's being thrown at us. And we are at that point. And I've been telling everyone that's been coming, I've screamed it to the top of my lungs. I have done everything I know to do to fight for you guys. And there's people in here that, they'll tell you, I have approached the commission. I went back and did a tax analysis. I went all the way back to 56 and showed them what we were getting. We were getting over 50% of the tax rate. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I do now. And last year, Short Mountain was having an absolute fit, and I had this here, and I did all this work. I went over there, I did all this work. When I went to the restroom after it was over, here's your proof. Here's the reason we're at where we are. It was in the trash can. I went to the restroom after it was over, and I spent 2 days of my life trying to figure this out to show people what was going on. They thrown it away. And I'm not picking on them. They didn't
So
do
your
what they did.
concern is that you would come over and it would fall on deaf ears and we would not.
I don't understand what you're expecting from the Board of Education. The Board of Education has done everything in the past few years. We have dipped into our reserves till there's almost no reserve left. There's a little left. We haven't broke ourselves. We have dipped into our reserves to keep 7 schools open and keep Cannon County the way it is.
So your decision is already made.
That's
then.
what we wanted to do. No, our decision is not made. It hasn't been made. We've tried to, this is a heartfelt decision. It's hard. I know.
Have you been to Auburn Town to a meeting?
I know you're from Auburn Town, but I'm an East Side Tiger. I was born in the East Side area. I drive by East Side. I live less than a quarter of a mile away.
Mhm.
I don't want to drive by that school and see that school something else. It's gonna hurt. That's my community. I know how you feel. I absolutely totally know how you feel. And I'm not telling you that your feelings are unjust.
Mhm.
But there's 100 and East Side is the largest of the small schools. And it costs about $850,000 a year to run that school. It costs about $850,000 to run Auburn Town, and it costs about $850,000 to run Short Mountain. And it does. Short Mountain receives about 11,000, almost 12,000, and Auburn Town receives almost 12,000 per child to keep that building open. Woodland, Woodbury, Westside receive less than 10, or 9,000 and something. If we were to go to court over inequality, and we'll lose that battle because we've got the numbers, the state does them for us. You guys get more money per child, you're almost getting a private school education over there, and the county's paying for it.
We didn't come here for that.
I'm
Okay.
telling you what I have.
It sounds like to me,
Well, here's the
you've already
thing.
got your blinders on.
Well, I just have one
I
question.
don't have blinders on, guys. I've been fighting for you for a long time, and there's nobody helping me.
Well, one of the questions I have is, and I went back and gone through these meetings and listened, all the ones online. I don't know what your plan is.
Yes, that's what we're
Well,
wanting to ask.
unfortunately, I can't find it. I went back to the minutes for over a year and a half, and I'm like,
I will tell you from the bottom of my heart that we're in the infancy stage of planning.
well,
Because, let me tell you, the state of Tennessee recommends that the school board and the county commission have a 5, 10, and 15-year goal.
well, that's what I was looking for.
We've never had one. It's nowhere to be found, and I have tried and tried and tried to work with people and try to get that going, and I can't. I can't get it going.
Well, how are we supposed to base questions if we can't even figure out where you're going?
But one of the big questions we have is the transportation plan. You know, what is the plan for transporting the students from Auburntown over to Woodbury? Is there an increase in, will there be more buses? What is that expense like? Those are the kinds of questions that if we had answers to, we would feel maybe more comfortable.
Every child in Cannon County that stays in the Cannon County system comes to the high school. And they get there.
Agreed.
It won't be that much different.
No, what my thing would be is, I don't know what's right and what's wrong. So I'm trying to learn. Will you guys educate me on your plan? I mean, are you gonna close one school a year, a school every year, 3 schools all at once? Are you going, what are your contingency
We
plans?
would tell you if we did, we've not figured that out yet. We're still
Well,
all
okay.
new. And we tried to get the whole county to come in October to the high school, and it is online, and you can go back and listen to every bit of it. The meeting in October that we told the whole county we were going to put on, Mr. the Chairman got put on the ballot to start new construction of a new school. If you would have come to that meeting, anybody would have come to that meeting, besides 3 parents from Short Mountain, then you would know that the goal is to have an elementary school at Woodbury Grammar, a middle school right
So
behind.
you do want to build a middle school? That was one of the other questions. It's
Yeah.
not out there in the plan anywhere.
It's been at every meeting. We've talked
When
about a
is it
middle
gonna be
school.
built?
Huh?
When are
When will
you,
it be built?
yeah,
We're
when
hoping
would you
by
start?
2023.
you want it built by 2023?
Is that not
So
right,
your
Wade?
start date is,
We're working on it, depending on construction.
okay, and the funding and all that, you have all that?
We're still working, and then you have to go by, we have to wait on our county commissioners to even approve that. The county commissioners don't approve that,
But what are you submitting to them?
our plan.
Okay, well, I haven't seen the plan, so I can't base my information on it.
I worked afternoon shift, so I wasn't able to attend that meeting. I'm
But-
on days as of.
Also, attending, look, I was gonna tell you, listening to these meetings online is very hard. One of the reasons is I don't know all the acronyms. Okay, I'm listening to it. What? Wait, what?
That's the BEP. What is it?
Well, that, you know, and over time, can I pick it out? I started to get a little bit here, but just like you guys said, did you give the numbers? Well, at this point, I can't even tell. I mean, you know,
Where's your project plan? I mean, I
Well, I
come
would
from an
just like-
industry where you have project managers and for each project you have a project plan. And so you have your funding, you have the construction, you have the transportation, have all the different things outlined. I've seen no documents or anything that we can reference as to what the plan is.
And I think that's something we need to be able to, look, you guys could be right. What you're doing could be 100%.
But we don't know.
I don't have any way of looking at it.
People are curious. They want to know what's going on with their children. My dog, oldest dog, has 4 boys. Oldest was 9. So I'm on behalf of her is the reason I'm here asking the questions. And that's one of many that want to know, hey, what's going on, and that is the actual reason for the meeting. It's not to have a loud blah 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 conversation.
Flyover, no, I want to ask intelligent questions.
It's to have a question, and the questions, we're giving you the questions.
Well, hopefully, last week we finished going through the budget. I requested we go line by line because it'll say communications. Okay, what is that $10,000 for now? I want to know. I want to know how many teachers this line pays for. So that's what we did. We just finished that. So now we can work on where we need to cut or how can we cut money. Because none of us knew what that, we saw a budget, but we didn't know what that stuff was.
On a less than week's notice, they decided to have a permit in school. Over 100 people showed up. That quick. That quick. So if you want 1 or 2 people to show up, it ain't gonna happen. There'll be 200 or 300 there.
You know, why didn't they come to the high school in October?
Probably like
for
me,
one,
they didn't know even
it's
about it.
hard.
I don't know how you.
I
did it.
would not have
I
come
worked that
in
Tuesday if
October.
I could.
But
Because
your
I have,
daughter could have. Could she
I
not
don't
have?
know. I don't know.
I mean, what was everybody else? I didn't have one Auburn Town person there. Besides an Auburn Town teacher.
Yeah, teacher.
I personally did not know all
And
this was
it was
going on in
advertised, it
October.
was
Yeah, did I.
advertised for over a month.
where?
In the
In the
newspaper.
paper.
Who, do you read a paper nowadays?
Yes, I read one every week.
I
And I'm
don't.
35
I
years
don't.
old.
I don't, I'm sorry.
I do. Do y'all
I
have
don't.
Facebook?
I'm not a big
Facebook?
Facebook
It
person.
was on Facebook.
But you know what? You
It
could have,
was posted at the courthouse.
How could we communicate with you then?
you could have just sat at home with the kids.
Right now, the best way to communicate is through the.
That would be my recommendation.
We did.
They did.
I know we did.
I
did
didn't
at my
get
mom's.
anything. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
I had one of my
Right.
little boy
It's
guy.
probably still in the backpack because we know how kids are.
My kid's pretty good, but yes, you may be right. But
Well,
I'm
bottom
still,
line is we're looking for information that's driving these conversations that we're hearing about.
so that we can become involved and help you guys.
Hearsays went too far.
Oh, definitely.
Hearsays went too far. It's time to get down to the nitty gritty and say, okay, this is what we're doing.
No school is formatted to be closed at this point. No school. And I think the board would like if we did do this. I don't know if the budget will allow us to do this. This is the turmoil that we're in. These are the decisions that we have to make. If we did this and we could afford to do this, and a lot of this depends upon the BEP money and how they do and the ESSER funds that are coming in. We don't know what's gonna happen.
That's the federal funds that we're getting for COVID.
I'm sorry.
And the BEP money, they're threatening to take away from us for all the kids that we lost
Well,
due to
explain
COVID,
to them
not
what the
that are at
BEP
home.
You gotta explain what
We're
the
hoping to
BEP is.
keep.
I know what the mean.
Okay.
But,
I read enough to get that one. That was pretty easy.
That's
What
good.
money we get
Now
from
that I'm on day
state?
shift,
Yes.
I've watched the radio.
There are so many variables right now. Now, if the wheel tax had passed, we could have used every single amount of money that we saved by closing the schools and funding these kids' education and built a school and been sitting in high cotton. That did not happen. So now if we want to build a school, we've got to close schools to make that happen. According to the office upstairs, the finance office, we can pay for that building. But I can't spend a ton of money for 15 or 20 years of the savings on education.
Not an argument. Let me ask you a question. Does middle school work?
We don't know. We never had one.
No. I'm asking, does, in general, over the nation, is the middle school a good thing or a bad thing?
What you could offer, I think is a good thing. Let
The research is there that it can be better in certain circumstances.
Right,
Absolutely.
now,
Absolutely, what we could provide for our students that they're not getting, you know, in an Auburn situation, what we're not getting now, yes, it can be better. Not just the sports, and this from us, no, we're talking band, we're talking drama, we're talking.
I'm talking education.
But in education wise.
That should be number one, education.
The answer is yes.
Hey,
But
Mr. Curtis, have you seen all the recent studies that shows the negative impact on the behavior of kids for middle schools once they go from a K-8 to a middle school?
I have
There's a
seen,
Harvard,
I have seen some research, yes.
yeah, there's several studies that I can
But
see
you
you.
can have behavioral situations. I'm dealing with the fifth grader right now.
But
But I have seen that though, Derek. I have seen that.
you can take behavior and compare Rutherford County to Cannon County and see which behavioral differences. Of course, obviously they have more middle schools,
Right.
so you got more behavioral, right? So the data should back it up, correct?
Well, their schools are about more than twice the size of what this middle school would be also.
Yes.
Well, percentage wise.
Yeah.
On topic is, just would you be willing to meet? And entertain some conversations? Or if we had a representative sampling of people and not a large crowd, you know, however you want it, would you be willing to entertain a conversation with our community? That's the question.
I don't
on the
have a
agenda.
problem, I don't have a problem with it. I'm gonna tell you why. I believe what I believe. But I don't have enough information right now to sit down and tell you factual stuff.
When
And I
will you
don't-
have that?
I don't wanna lie to you. Hopefully by the end of this year, hopefully.
And
That's what
and
we're
don't
asking.
get us wrong.
I'm not saying the end, I'm not saying December, I'm saying the end of this.
School
We find out-
year. School year.
When we find out what the ESSER money is, when we find out
What our budget is,
factual costs. And if I can do this, like I said, if the wheel tax had passed, we could have actually, and I know we could have, because it's what I wanted to do. I want shop classes where kids can weld. I want shop classes at that high school where kids learn how to play paper.
Vocational.
When kids can do HVAC.
we want them to be able to leave high school and
I
have a
want a
job.
kid to be able to get a $50,000 a year job without going to college. 50% of our kids go to college. We don't know yet. We've tried to research wage work really hard to see how many actual graduate. They're not going, all kids are not going to college, but I'm not helping those kids that are not going to college at all.
But when you have that information at the end of the school year, when you know what your funding is going to be, when you have information at hand, so you are beginning to formulate your plans, will you meet with us before any final decisions are made?
I don't have a problem with it.
Does
That's all we're
anybody on the
asking.
school board have a problem with it?
Can I ask this? And I want you to know it's open discussion. I'm not trying to, I just want to have a good open discussion. Would you guys be okay if it is a Cannon County community conversation?
As long as they come to Auburn, because the people of Auburn is the one that's got this going.
Well, no, not necessarily,
I'm
because
talking
this school
about-
board out here got this going
I'm
back
talking
in
about a
September.
Cannon County.
Okay, what we're talking about, I got a hold of the person out of the east side, I got a hold of the person up at Short Mountain, both of them. October, and told them what was going on. The rest of this group, there's a little core group in Auburn that's been meeting on this. We ain't bringing everybody in, because first and foremost, some people just don't know how to act in the meeting. I mean, be honest with you, I've been in corporate level. And sometimes I know exactly how not to act, and I will act that way. But here's the key to it. In your neighborhood, you're gonna lose possibly the fabric of that whole community. Now, do you have a voice? It depends on if you want to stand up and ask questions. The key to it is ask the right questions. That's why we said we'll get questions from the community. If it's 5 questions, fine. How many of you agree to? We will go through them. The group that has just been together, we'll go through them. try to pick the correct questions. And we're not just gonna throw them to you. Yes, we're gonna give them to you, but we're gonna do our work also. So,
So
We're-
you're saying that you are not comfortable with a whole Cannon County group coming together, still having the ability to do the
the
questions?
group that
We're
has
not
got
just
this
shutting,
together,
if it happens, it's not just Auburndale.
We realize that.
we do, but the
Well,
group that
that's
has
what I'm
got.
not understanding, it's not Auburndale.
Well, here would be my
You
suggestion.
have 5 grammar
No, no,
schools
no.
in this school, it's gonna close.
Here's my suggestion.
All 6 actually. but-
Well,
You would
all
sit there and have
Woodbury Grammar comes
the
from-
original, the first one for everybody. You know, here, wherever you would have it here, the school board, at the high school, whatever. And then meet the individual schools who, or areas that want to meet. Short Mountain may not, may not be any representative. There may not be one from East Side. Who knows? I can't speak for them,
But Auburntown's very passionate about it.
but
and-
No,
it would be,
you're not alone.
I know we're not alone.
but so if you have the general one first, and then if people want to do it, then they work with you and make it.
I'm gonna tell you the truth right here. Now, this is factual. Everybody's here. We had discussed doing that. The turnout was so low at the high school when we did it the first time. Nobody here wanted to try it again.
I can't answer that, but I didn't
Can't
know it
either, but
happened.
I just know that that's what we're.
I mean, that's
asking
what
for.
y'all understand that I got elected in August. From August to now, I've been in over 50 meetings, 50. I have a little boy and a girl at home, just like all y'all may have grandkids and a girl at home. Alita has kids.
Yes.
We take from our family time.
Mhm.
I mean, it's 7:30, I've been here since 5:30. I'm already 2 hours in, then I got a budget meeting after this to figure out what I'm gonna do about all these schools. So y'all, I'm asking y'all, this is,
So
coming
you're
from-
saying there's not, it's.
no, I'm wanting you to explain to me, like Jaden said, we set this meeting at the high school and we were gonna go to every school. Nobody showed up. So
I
why did
can't
we go?
speak to
I
that.
can't speak to that either.
But y'all, what
I don't know.
what happened to get everybody awake after
Okay.
October?
Let me put it to you like this, if everybody didn't know about it, why wasn't it portrayed differently? Why didn't you go and let these people know about it?
It just may not have been.
I mean, I don't know what else to tell
I
y'all.
did, but I said,
I didn't know.
Before,
Well, that's
before we
me,
had
yeah.
social media, how did people find stuff? I mean, word of mouth, I guess, newspapers?
It's past.
That's
Well,
October.
every one of your
It's October.
principals
Let's
knew.
I can
focus
tell
on
you
the
one way.
present.
Well, every one of your principals knew.
Every
I
time
am
my
focused
kid
on
is
the
absent
present.
from school, I get a text message.
I think-
Okay, so you somewhere along the way have a way to text every
That's
parent,
right.
and that would have worked.
I mean, I understand.
I understand that not everybody has cell phones,
The only thing
but you
was-
may have to do it multiple ways to make it out there.
What's on the agenda is simply, will you be willing to meet?
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, you may not, look, you
And
may
if you
even
don't
go to
want
the
to,
general
you don't
meeting
want to.
It can be
of
a 2
everybody.
day. We're not gonna push it next week. We're not gonna push it.
Well, I mean, there's nothing we can
I
do
already
next
told
week.
you, I don't have anything against them. I don't.
It's up to
You don't have
I
to.
mean-
No, it's not.
It's up to
There's
everybody.
5 people here. I'm not, I mean, I can come over there by myself, but
We're not asking anybody to come along. We're asking for the board to come. And we'll give you specific questions that the community is seeking understanding from. And once that takes place, it may be that we're like, okay, now we understand. But I think we have a right, before we lose our school and the core of our community and 20% of our property value, we have a right to have some questions answered.
It sounds like you all are needing more transparency.
Correct.
Well, the transparency would be even better in what's going on. I have a hard time figuring out what your goals are. You know, it's
Well,
almost,
the main goal is, right now, the way we're going with our financials, and this is just looking at these numbers right here,
right.
would be the 3 schools, but as Javen said, we gotta figure out if we can even pay for middle school. We don't even know if we can build a middle school. So we're still working on all y'all's questions that y'all have.
But
And y'all are, everybody on Facebook, I've seen the post. I've had one man said he wished he'd see me in a bread aisle at Dollar General.
Yeah, I had someone.
I
threaten to burn
mean,
my house
hey,
down.
that is,
that's
That was
not
terrible.
worth that to me.
I agree.
I'm not
Look, I
going
am
to
not a
jail
Facebook
over
person.
a bill.
Whoever
I'm
it was.
sorry.
And
That's
I
the
think
way
that's what their
we
main
said
concern
we would
is,
get
you know,
all
that
questions.
because
The
they
last
have
thing you want is a cowboy coming out
If
there.
they're worried about their safety,
They weren't even from Auburn.
I will promise, I will go
that's
hire
my
3
deal.
officers to stand in the meeting.
I've done had we've all had our house threatened to be burned. Y'all, do y'all
I can't,
understand
you know,
that? Our
Yes,
house has
I'm
literally,
an elected official, I understand.
my
that
house
kind
has
of
been
stuff, too.
threatened to be burned, and I promise you, you mess with my family, anybody, and I'll say this publicly,
no,
it
no.
gets bad.
That's not the.
But
kind
I'm
of
hoping
thing
this
we
is
want.
what it turns into, guys.
there's a lot of Facebook warriors out there. I am not one of them.
Well, that's good to know, because I don't, I've had
Because
to,
if
we've
I'm
had
gonna
to
say
delete our
something,
account.
I will stand up and say it. I don't have a problem.
But I'm
Because
with
I want to be
Jay.
educated.
Once
this
we
problem.
have it, I'll be honest with you, I come in this meeting totally against going to Auburn Town. 100% against going to Auburn Town, and nothing against Auburn Town whatsoever. I promise you. I went to West Side and I represent Woodland. I'm an Eagle from K to eighth grade.
And a certain person in sixth grade. too.
Exactly.
But
And I
understand-
just, but like Jaden said, once we know what we're gonna do, like you're asking for.
That will
I'll be
allow me
glad
to ask
do it, but I
questions
can't
that are
go right- We
legitimately.
can't go right
That's what I'm
now.
asking, when you have your
you're
information
willing to
and
do
before
that,
decisions are
Yes,
made.
that's the whole thing. And I have asked for the information.
Well, how about this? You guys get your questions.
We can't get the questions until you get the
No,
information.
no, no, hold on. You give us the questions. When we finally have some answers, then we can answer your questions and present it to Auburn Town or anybody else.
Well, that's kind of
Yeah, we don't, I mean,
backwards.
I don't care what question you give me, we can't answer them yet.
I think.
Right, but I would need to see your information first.
Where we got
Need
it
to see
from.
your
Yeah,
project plan.
I
and
understand
your
that.
plan before I could even formulate the
Formulate
question. That's what I came here for.
Chicken or the egg or the egg or chicken.
Right.
Well, it's a little hard if I don't know what your thought process is.
I think what is being said here, I love what you used, Ms. Crystal, you said transparency. This board became a board of these 5 individuals and working with Mr. Curtis in October, and then officially in November. That is a new board, but we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Okay. We have tried our best, all the way around. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh,
No animal rights after this
promote
meeting.
an environment of open communication. If you look at the 5 of us, that's what we want. We want people, I want to say thank you for coming to this meeting tonight.
Yes,
Because people
yes.
don't come. Thank you for asking for something to be put on the agenda. We've talked a lot tonight about, what are we gonna do with this building? What are we gonna do with this building? Are we gonna build this building? And we talked about goals. If you look up there, our mission statement and our vision deals with excellence every day in every way for every child in the Cannon County community. That is what we're working toward, y'all. And that means that we're thinking about the children in Auburn, that we're thinking about the children in East Side, Woodland, Woodbury, I don't want to leave anybody out, Short Mountain, and at Cannon County High School, all of them, West Side. We're trying our best. We want you to begin to have faith in us, and that's what we're trying to promote.
And I
if
think the faith will come with information.
Yes, and if you will be patient with us, you've said you've watched, we're gonna lie on them, we're figuring this out. There's lots of things I didn't know, and I'm an educator.
I really got
So
educated on
please.
the November meeting with the lady from the state.
Yes,
Yes, that was a good
mean,
one. I was there for that one.
That she spoke in layman terms.
Well, she
And
helped with the staffing, you know, how many teachers you like, or how many principals
Right.
and per, 100 kids, 220 kids, I think the number was. You know, you get a full-time principal, and I'm thinking, golly, this is really gets complicated.
but just
I
know
mean,
that our,
BDP is.
And
Well,
if you
then I
have a
started-
question, ask us. You know, what was it, a couple meetings ago? Is when I was thrown up there on Facebook saying that I voted to close 3 schools.
That was me.
Right, but we didn't even say that. But I don't, was that you that?
That
Okay.
was.
And I'm like, I never said we were closing 3 schools. I don't know where that came from.
It was
But
because
no
of the way the budget went.
Correct. But no
Budget.
one called and asked me. And then the next thing I know, I'm getting threats because I said I was gonna close 3 schools. And I was like, That wasn't even talked
And,
about.
and that's the thing, if we know, and some of it's the community's fault for not attending. I'm always surprised by I don't even have children. So, why am I here? I'm a
Because you love
property-
Auburn.
Because you love Auburn.
I love Auburn. I have property. My property is not gonna be worth as much without a school. I'm concerned.
I
So-
don't think that will affect your property.
It does,
value.
20%.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something right now.
20%.
I spent $1.5 million to move out here because of Auburn Town School. It was one of the deciding factors.
But,
Now, you wanna argue that number? What do you wanna say?
but it's not just Auburn now.
You go to, yeah.
No,
It would be countywide
Exactly.
besides the city of Woodbury.
You go to Zillow and you look in there, it'll tell you
I
the
mean,
nearest store.
that's what
there's
it
gas
is, that's
station,
what
there's
happened.
I came from,
If we consolidate.
I came from Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach County, Florida. The reason we moved, the school, the shootings at the school. One year, there must have been, I want to say 6 times lockdown alerts at the school.
You're in West Palm.
Yes,
I can understand. I got a friend of mine that teaches in West Palm.
you know, and
US government.
we're out,
I see.
and on the acreage was one of the worst ones in West Palm, and it was terrible. And I told him, I said, we moved our kids into private. I don't,
Well, I think
private
what it
school
is,
good?
the community's concerned.
I don't really like private school.
Yeah.
I didn't go to a private school.
You know,
I think you miss a lot of stuff.
Whatever.
I mean,
In a
And
private
there's
school.
no intimidation meant to happen at all.
I understand that you're concerned, and you may not think that I do, but I have the same feelings you do. It's the same thing, and I have looked at ways to get around this for, I don't know.
Well,
I
I would,
pushed Mr. Curtis for several years to try to help, and we were pushing just pushing it down as far as we could go. We're gonna keep doing this as far as we can go. Guys, it's at the end of the road. And you've got to realize that. It's here. We pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. We robbed out of reserve. We kept I want to say you, but we kept Cannon County for just about as long as we can with what we're currently getting.
So is
Okay.
that decision made?
I don't know that it's, as far as the budget goes, I've been in contact with the comptroller's office. I have emails from the lady that works at the comptroller's office. We cannot go bankrupt. We cannot. What the state will do is send people in here to make us match the BEP. You're not gonna like that. You're not gonna have any say in that whatsoever. If they make us match the BEP, we're gonna lose
33 positions.
right off the bat.
Teachers,
You think-
that's not,
you think-
that's certified
Do you
positions.
think Auburn Town can survive that? No. Do you think Eastside can survive that? No. Do you think Short Mountain can survive that? No. And we won't,
can Cannon County survive?
we won't have a building to put them in because we've sit here and done nothing, knowing it's coming, knowing that it's coming, and we've done nothing to prevent it.
I
So
think,
who's that fall on? That falls on us.
well, I think what happens is, and I run into this quite a bit here, is this is the way we've done things,
Yes, it is.
It is.
okay? This is old school, it's the way we've always done it. That's not always the right way to do it, but it's the way we've done it.
It's the comfortable thing and it's tradition.
Well, change is always difficult,
Very.
always.
All we're
But here's-
asking is before any decisions are made and before it's too late for change, can we be communicated with so we can ask educated questions?
And can we maybe find different ways to
Alternate.
do something?
Right.
I guarantee you.
There's a lot of outside the box
I
thoughts
know
that can come in, and
We
you
know.
say, it takes one person to come up with a great idea.
I think Wade's looked into it a lot and I've kept up with it some. I'll be honest with you, Auburn Town cannot sustain the school. You don't have enough people. The city of Woodbury cannot sustain the school by itself. You can't. You can't
Here's
do it.
something to look at. I don't have the numbers. But in the last 15 years, tell me, not right now, sometime or another. Shoot me a message or something.
Give
Tell me the attendance difference in Auburn Town. Has it declined? or has it accelerated?
Didn't say you had, you may have grown a little bit, but you gotta look at the amount of kids, you did decline quite a bit in the last couple of years.
You got brand new homes going in the building right now.
Well, that would be my fear, is we close a school
We
and,
don't get the new homes.
and you get the new homes and all of a sudden Woodbury Grammar School isn't big enough.
They,
And now you got a problem.
Then you do. Well, that's where you're gonna have to look at your numbers.
Right, and I know
The
half.
projection, the projections.
I know you're at 20%.
Projections aren't really accurate either.
No,
That's what gets me.
But here's the thing. When you have a goal plan and you have contingency built into it, maybe you're closing one school a year. And you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's, boom, we have a big increase. Uh-oh, wait a minute, we're getting, maybe you better not close another school next year until we figure this out. I don't know the answers, but I can tell you, I'm running businesses all my life.
land selling in Auburn Town.
You have to have a plan.
And I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I talked to a guy over here Saturday or something, Friday or Saturday, and he was saying, I was seeing all these houses. I said, yeah. I said, but the thing about it is, you have to buy 5 acres and it's going between 20 and 21,000 an acre.
It's that way all over.
And you still haven't got a driveway and a septic tank and city water down, but you got $100,000 in a lot.
So.
Now, there's money moving in,
I'm saying.
and they've got the kids moving in,
You don't tell me nothing. I live at Woodland. I can
I-
show you right now
with the
where
pages.
15 just got them put in the last 6 months.
I saw 3 or 4 on the way to Red Hill Road.
Yeah, I live right off of the road.
Here's the kid,
Crazy how fast they're going
and I'm
all
not
over.
trying to tell anybody how to do the job at all, because I don't know how to do it.
Okay.
But you got people from other counties and Davidson County that are coming this way. and grow. Now, you start closing schools.
And we've thought of that. Yeah, I'm telling y'all, we've thought of
If
this.
you close it, it's gonna cost 3 times as much to open it because you gotta go back all through the code.
Exactly right. We've examined that.
We
We've looked at that.
those are very valuable.
And, the other thing I'm looking at
But
is,
you're also, let me run this by you, and I want you to think about it, and I want you to get upset about it. I can take $2 million a year for the next 5 or 6 years and spend it on every school. And you can barely tell I've been there. Our schools are outdated. Some of them were built in 56, some of them were built in
58.
57.
Ours is one of the newer ones.
Yours is.
Auburn built in 1980.
But your septic system is sitting on rock. You don't have a bottom in your septic tank. You don't. We could spend.
I remember when it was dug. You ain't
We
got
can
to tell me.
spend, we can spend millions and millions and
When the
millions of
secondary was
dollars
dug.
on old buildings and still not have something up to code.
And I guess the questions we've got is what's gonna happen to those buildings when you close them? And what is that gonna look like? What are your plans for that?
You may answer that, Joe.
Well, we've
talked a lot about that.
A lot of consideration because of where you are and how tight knit the community is and stuff and.
Vandals.
Auburn Town could very easily, because you are a city. And you are set up, you could easily, probably, I won't say maintain the building, but you could probably keep it up pretty well. I mean, you
City
guys-
cannot afford it. I'm on the city council.
And
We
that-
can't afford it.
That land goes back to the original owner if it's not a school.
You
The
check into that.
well, it depends on which attorney you talk to.
Well, that or their heirs.
Or the heirs or
They're
whatever.
heirs and there's
But-
about 8 or
but,
10 of them.
Since you are an entity, the land could, the building can revert to the city of Auburn Town. Because the original purchaser of that property there in Auburn Town, I've looked at the deed and I've had some attorneys look at that. And our school board attorney look at that. And what we determined there is that on the initial investment, it was a partnership between, imagine that, a partnership between the school board and the city, the community, it says in the deed, the community of Auburn Town. So I think this board needs to consider that because
If
it
you
was
do
the
give it to the
initial.
city, can we use it for a charter school?
You can, that'd be up to the city to decide of whatever,
Excellent.
if you did that, that would be up to the city, but running the schools are very, very expensive. on city budgets.
There's a lot of caveats.
In fact, there's, Roger Tory and I have talked about, a city school for Auburn County. We, before all of this talk, Roger and I know each other for 35 years and we talked about that and what we looked at that and he doesn't, there's not enough students inside the city limits of Auburn
They have
Town.
to be in the
Correct.
city
It's
limits.
substantial. He said, you let me go 5 miles out.
Correct.
We might could do it.
Correct.
But in the city limits, in the corporate limits of the city of Auburn County.
Yeah, but you can
You
annex.
don't have that, that clientele.
Mhm.
But in operating schools is very, very expensive and it is very, you can say.
But we can't
$850,000.
maintain it.
You can't,
No, I have not.
but the building itself, the maintenance on
Yeah,
that is
you're
not
right.
as bad as probably it could be. I mean, it could be easily.
But the city cannot absorb that.
Gotcha. But
We don't, if we can't,
Do you need this back?
if it can be used as.
That's
a
my
school,
note is.
We don't want a vacant building.
That's the matter is.
I was gonna say, I can drop him one off in his
Especially
mailbox. I drive by
the
your house
historic
twice a day.
gym.
So you'll drop one off
Yeah.
in my mailbox?
I'll have to
You
make
know,
a
maybe
copy
history-
tomorrow at work, but I'll drop one off.
Historical preservation.
The gym we're not so concerned about is maintaining the building.
But that's,
So
that's one proposal. the
bottom
board
line,
could do
before we
is to
leave,
turn it over.
would you be willing to meet with us once you have plans set in place?
My email, it's Todd, T-O-D-D.
That's my,
Okay.
but now there's 5 others, but I.
That's all we're
Dot.
waiting on.
That's all we're waiting on.
Paxson, P-A-X-S-O-N.
I've
Yeah,
never
AOL.com.
turned anybody away from a conversation, they have numbers and loads of you guys.
Would you
Yeah,
mind,
we've talked, I've been to some of your meetings. Yes.
would you mind if I
I'm the one
emailed
that
it to
wanted to
you?
know about the bond at on the roof at the school. It took a couple of years to
Right,
find
right,
out.
right. And we've got that taken care of. Praise the Lord to this.
It took a while, a couple of years from the first time, and unfortunately, that costs you money when you're spending years later on the bond.
There you go.
This time deals with them on a regular basis.
I appreciate you guys coming up, most of your opinions and stuff. You're one of the few that show up, but that's another thing that kind of agitates me. You're running on hearsay, but once you think your building might close, then you kind of come out in full force. And I've been trying to get people to come out for several years.
And that is on us. I mean, to be.
It's also being, I don't buy the paper here.
It's 2 weeks late.
I'm sorry, I just don't.
I can hear you.
I'm not on social
Well,
media.
I do see
I'm not a
the
social
courier.
media fan
I'm not
either.
in.
I do see the courier on occasion, but again, I don't have kids, so I don't necessarily peruse that. But,
We'll get you some.
no, thank you. There's a reason why I don't have them. But, regardless, we're just wanting to see some information. And I believe once you have it and we can see it and we can formulate questions about it, we just don't want to see decisions be made in a vacuum. We want to be part of that and be able to say, we understand and be on board, not only understand, but be on board and not be adversarial throughout the entire situation.
And the community, at least they know what's going on.
Now they know there's no excuses. So,
Well, that, and, if you come out and it's right what you say, and you come out and your goals are in line and
the
everything,
plan's there.
yeah,
What can you do?
we'll support
You gotta do
you.
what you gotta do. I mean, that's it.
You say that, but
No, it's what it is.
Well, I don't, look,
I had to get over, and I did, I had to do it myself. I tried and tried with the budget, I tried and tried with the commission. I told them it's been laid out several times. I had to put my heart in a box. And that's a hard thing to do. You've got to look at it with your mind and see what.
not your heart.
And see what we're
You can't
not.
let it be an emotional issue.
You've got to look, see, Auburn Town has 4 classes of children in the high school every year. Okay, it's not just about Auburn Town School. You've got 4 classes of kids in the high school every year, and those kids are not getting anywhere near what they need. And you know that. You know that. You already know that because you've had kids go through that high school. You know that.
Well, a lot of that's on the
Not my
parents.
goals.
I'm gonna tell you that right now, because I can tell you,
There's so much that those kids are not being offered that.
well, I, no argument, but one of the biggest things I kept seeing this year was kids, getting sent home because of close contact for COVID every time I turned her. And do you think they were on virtual?
Well,
No, we know they weren't.
I can tell you they weren't because I ran into like 8 of them down at, Taco Bell one day and the next day at Sonic, and I'm like,
we know.
You know, very much so.
I
You
think
know,
a
so-
lot of our children are, some of them are not parented in the ways, I think there's a lot of disengagement. I believe there's a lot of room for improvement on the ways some of the kids go through the system and they don't get what they need because they don't know
Well,
to ask. And
I'm not blaming you. Of course, I know people are listening. I'm getting phone calls. I'm not blaming the high school staff, the high school employees, the high school anything. There are just things that those kids could be involved in the community, could be involved in what we call now CTE, but I like to call it vocational.
Mhm.
It's CTE. Where like the closest number we can get is 50% of our kids go to college. Not all of those kids graduate. What are we doing for that 50% that's not going to college?
no argument.
No
What-
argument
What
here.
are we doing for the kids that aren't
My point
graduating?
is, the way we are currently structured, I can't do anything for them. I can't, because my hands are tied with the budget. I'm keeping 7 buildings open,
It should have been when I was.
and if I had extra money, I could help every kid in this county
It
at
was
least
getting
have a
scary
chance
there
at
for a
a
little
CTE
bit.
course sometime.
My question earlier
New
was,
leadership.
you was talking about the welding classes and all, what happened to them? They were there.
They were in the ag building, but
They're not for our job.
It's ag mechanics.
Oh, you're talking about like, VOTEC classes?
Yes.
yeah, I'm talking about a kid
Certifications.
I
graduating
went to
school
go
with
to
certification.
guys while I was in high school.
And we're trying to get that now, we're trying to get that work at the high school right now. or according to what
Yeah, but I went to high
Partnership.
school and went to VOTEC
And went to VOTEC too, yeah.
and had a
Same
job.
thing.
Yeah, but
But now they can do it at high school while they're in school, and they can come out of school without going after school. After you went your 7 hours, they can do it inside of school and come out making between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. Right after May 31st.
Depending on how many hours they have.
I talked to a fellow
Used
last
to-
year
Welding
that
classes
went
2
through
years.
the vocational for HVAC. I'm an HVAC man. I was gonna hire him in at $21 an hour, and he graduated this past May. He got his EPA license in February of last year before COVID even hit. I could have hired him right away if he'd been 18.
How are they getting that?
They're working with
With
TCATs,
TCATs.
they're working with the
With
TCATs,
colleges.
and they're getting that while they're in high school, they're getting the TCAT credits.
He's got 4 years of high school, so he's taking it all 4 years.
He's, well, what he's,
That's what, that was my question.
Yes, he was doing
Because-
absolutely.
That's high school. I think what we were really focusing on is the middle grades and the elementary schools.
we can start CTE. That was the
We
plan.
need to have band as long as elementary, we don't have
The
band.
CTE course, Crystal Kennedy said,
We have, well.
we do it at Woodbury Grammar,
This high
but
school has a big
She
band at one
can't do
time.
it at every
band
school.
teacher, I
She doesn't
know,
have the money.
or several years back.
Or the personnel.
Right.
Personnel is one.
You're sending a
Okay,
band
so-
teacher from a high
okay,
school to
so-
every grammar school.
So
Can we just kind of go over the plan?
Pages down.
Well, they don't have the plan.
Well, no, I mean, the plan from this meeting, I guess is a better way to put it.
I claim her sometimes.
Well, those are good.
When I've got enough information that I'm sure I can answer your questions, I don't care it all to come. And I don't.
Well,
I don't care it all to come to your community.
That's all we wanna know is-
But I don't know if everybody in here will want to do that.
so, again, you will be getting us all this information that we've asked for.
I'll.
At a later
do the
date.
best that we can.
Well, I don't want to say a later date. I don't want it August of next year. And I want to be legitimate with you in a time frame that you think is possible.
Right.
So you kind of tell me. I
I'll
don't
know a
know.
whole lot more when the state finally makes up its mind on the BEP. And we know for sure we have extra money in our hands, what we can do.
And when's
what we
that?
can't do.
The legislature will end between now and the end of the month, that's what I've been told.
There's
So
And
then
what I have
maybe-
been told, this is news from today.
Okay.
I did talk with Contacts International today. And what I was told, that the governor is going to propose, it is going to propose it, it's in committee in regard to keeping the BEP the way it was, or hold harmless, meaning we're gonna get the same money we got last year.
Not for the
That
rest.
is going to pass, is what I have been told. Now, but you get the legislature, they could change on a dime. But I believe that source is very, very credible, And I think that's going to happen. Now, we don't know about the bill is in regard to the local funding of whether the locals will also honor the BEP hold harmless. And that's got to be in the legislature. That's going to be written in the legislation. That I've not seen yet. We know the state's going to do their part, whether the locals hold us harmless or not. The local funding body, meaning the county commission,
Right.
whether they hold us harmless, Madam Commissioner, that is in the nuts of the bill, the guts of the bill. We don't know that.
How can the local government take money from you that the state gave you?
If we drop, it depends on what the bill is.
Because they take ahead, it's daily average attendance. And if the state holds us harmless, they need to put a clause in it where the county government has to too. If they don't,
And what good is it?
Well, we'll get cut.
well, you don't get cut on the GDP, the majority of their funding comes from the state. The county only gives
75% approximately comes from the state of Tennessee. The other 25% is done by the county. And the county tells us, we're only going to give you X amount of dollars as maintenance of effort. We're only going to give you X amount of dollars, which has been around $2.9 million. That's what we've been getting over the last 3 or 4 years since I've been directors. I've been director 3 years. And every year we're keeping it the same, 68.5 cents. That's been that way the whole time that it's happened. But you know what it was? We were getting about 50% of the counties of the tax levy in 2000. You know how much I get now? 27.9%.
Right.
So there, I did hear last week that something about the state is, it was about the education system. They were gonna go in, they were looking at changes being made to appropriate more money to the school system, is from what I understood. And I listened to
Was
it
that
for a
local
while.
appropriations or state appropriations?
It was, I guess, money funded to the state
Yeah,
education.
through the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the state we don't have the problem with. Well, we do have the problem with the way they formulate the BEP. But
That's what I listened to in November. Yeah,
it's complicated. Mary Dursky, who you heard about in November, she knows her stuff, and she's the lady who tells us this is what County has to pay, this is what the state's going to pay.
she's the lady that y'all listen to.
In November.
Can we make this a regiment?
Okay.
I just wanted to get like, do you think by the end of May we can get the information? Can you get the, or
They upped it.
middle of June?
When do you think we'll know, because we've changed
Well,
the structure of the building that we were hoping to do quite a bit, that's gonna cost a little more money. So when do you think?
Gregor,
when do you think we'll
depends
know?
on what happens with ESSER. ESSER, we know what we're gonna get with ESSER right now. We do know that. We do know that. 3.595 is what we're getting with ESSER on 3.0. 20% of that has to be for learning loss and 1% for administration.
at least you're not building out of lumber. 388 for 54 studs, 388.
Most was not.
One stud.
You didn't know.
That's crazy.
And I
Who
showed
showed
you.
us stuff? Who showed us stuff?
So you figured the answer could come?
I don't think I had it in class. What?
I just, I have a date, I don't know.
I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm never gonna yell at
She's
you or
30.
anything like
How
that.
do you
I'm
want
not-
that?
It depends on.
I don't know, she gets
understand.
in the
I've
wall,
never
she
seen
got
something like
something
that.
over.
I do have your phone.
It all hit at one time.
Well, there's never
Because
time to
in
do something
all
like
honesty,
that.
until I get that, and it's been a couple of weeks, I'm guessing, looking through it, it's gonna be a lot. Before I can even come up with a question.
Let the
Thank
community
you so
know
much for
exactly
coming.
what's happening. If it's a dire F need, and it's gonna have to happen,
We don't,
I'm gonna be honest with you, Auburn Town will be like, well, I don't see no other way around. But here's the key, this crap has been tried, I'm not saying you, this crap has been tried about 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years.
Last 40
It's
years.
a 20-year cycle is what I call it, the 20-year cycle.
And
77 being the key year.
back then, it was kind
It was
of like, wait a
77
minute now,
when
we're
it was-
gonna build one school and Auburn grammar schools aren't full.
I didn't live here then.
Cost though has exponentially gone up.
Right.
Funding for us is exponentially gone down.
But-
We're at a Crawford now. If the people of Cannon County want to keep what it's got, the people of Cannon County are gonna have to come to terms that we're gonna have to pay for it.
But you see where I was coming from when I said
And
that? That is,
you
that's the
open-
mentality around.
You open Pandora's box when you do that. Teachers got a raise, state mandated another raise. What are we gonna do? We're gonna raise property taxes. Next year, we gotta have this for this particular school. What are we gonna do? We're gonna raise property taxes. Guys, it'll get to a point where when you open that box, you can't close it.
No, but if you don't grow, you die.
And that's that's our concern with our community.
That, you hit the nail on the head.
Hey, I agree.
I got
with
moved
Alexandria. I
Nice
agree with
doing it.
Alexandria.
You know, you just can't have uncontrolled
We
growth.
were with the consolidation in 74.
Who, where?
Alexandria's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
And so I understand where you're coming from, exactly.
I,
And our school moved to DeKalb West, and I was the last fifth grade class out of Alexandria Elementary. So I've been through this. I understand as a kid.
Right.
My grandfather was a county commissioner representing Alexandria, so I know quite well.
my grandfather was county commissioner.
So
for
same
about
thing
25
with
years.
JP, so it was.
You know, it's,
My
like I said,
dad was a commissioner when we built Woodbury Grammar and we added on to grammar schools.
Mr. Chairman, we ending?
We
Yeah,
may be done for the night.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
really tired now.
Director's comments.
thank you.
Hey, I need to get you a check, so let me do that.
Let me go out and get
You
your
go
book.
and bring it back.
Sure.
Can we take a little break? or
I
you
sent
want-
you an email of that tax thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't have any more comments at all under,
But
director's
if you need
comments. I'm good.
anything, I'm right there. and I'm not in Auburn, I'm right.
Yeah.
I go by your house twice a day.